Hello and welcome to this week's Runners World podcast with me, Ben Hobson.
Me, Rachel Boswell.
Rachel, thank you very much for co-hosting this week's episode.
Thanks for having me.
We had a lovely old time.
We did.
We went to the London Stadium,
nice.
home of the Super Saturday in the 2012 Olympics.
Yeah, that little venue.
And we got to chat to some Olympic heroes.
Some very cool people. So who did we speak to? We spoke to Jeanette Kwakye.
Yes, great one.
Great one.
Then straight into Denise Lewis.
Yep.
Followed up by
Colin Jackson.
Oh.
Big CJ.
And then into a little bit of Gabby Logan.
Gabby Logan, can't beat her.
And then finally Jess Ennis.
Ennis Hill. Yeah.
So we were at the BBC sort of press junket for the commentary team that are going to be taking on the Olympics, and we sat down with them all to have a bit of a chat about what their hot picks, why they love the Olympics so much, how they prepare for being in the hot seat all day long, commentating and all these sorts of things. So it's real insight into former athletes taking on being presenters, plus, just the skills.
Exactly, reliving their own gold medal moments as well.
Oh yes, of course.
Totally. It's quite stressful watching the Olympics, just, for us normal people.
Us mere mortals.
So when you actually experience that kind of competition yourself, it's probably even more sweat-invoking, stressful.
Oh yeah.
Can't even imagine. And as we learned, changing and preparing your outfits as a commentator is very important.
And the stress of it's getting, you want to look good on telly.
Exactly. There's a lot of time in hair and makeup. We need to appreciate that.
Definitely. I think the whole thing was impressive. Just really like how it seems a bit silly stating it, but how like on point they have to be constantly.
Absolutely. And they're not just commentators for track and field. It's for all Olympic sports, for Euros, for rugby. Oh. There's a lot
Logan.
going on. There's a lot of PBs all the time, and they're on it. It's very impressive.
So some hot takes. Who's going to win what? Opinions on the Kurt Ingebrigtsen beef.
Oh yeah.
All the other stuff that goes with the Olympics, the stories, the wonder of it all, the mishaps, the misery, the triumph, all of it covered off with these in this special sort of BBC presenting crew Olympic thing. It's an bit of an extra long episode, really, depending on the edit. I mean, I might slice some stuff out that we said that was boring, but the rest of them that can stay in.
They can stay.
We'll stay.
But yeah, a very cool experience.
Right, let's get our first guest on. Jeanette Kwakye, welcome to the Runners World podcast.
Thanks for having me.
We are talking all things Olympics today, so very excited. I actually feel that initial tingles started.
Did you feel it?
A little
when we got the video,
the montage.
We got the montage, the music was all going, it felt really good.
Yeah. It's coming around.
2 weeks of it.
2 weeks of it. When did the excitement for you build? When does the sort of 4-year cycle, outside of the running now, into the 4-year cycle of Olympic coverage? When does it start for
That's
you?
a really good question, actually, because I think as a broadcaster now, on the other side, you get so wrapped up in a multitude of sports. And I'm a sports fan. Yes, I was an athlete, I ran, but actually sport, the essence of sport, I'm all over it. So actually I get quite nervous for big events, like whatever it is. It could be football, it could be a huge boxing fight, it could be the cricket. I get the tingle. But for Olympics, it's a really special thing because there's always a little bit of build-up, isn't there? So you watch the montages, you listen to the athletes talk, and a lot of them are ready. So when I hear an athlete that's ready, I'm like, come on, yes, you're nearly there. So that's when I start to get my tingles. So a good couple of months out before everybody else, but I try not to exhaust myself by the time I get to the games, because that's what normally happens. I'm an emotional wreck. So for the first time in my life, my career, I'm just trying to measure myself and give myself a nice soft landing into this Olympic coverage. And it's a big one for me because of course I was in the morning show, and I just want to ease you all in. I don't want to get you so excited at 8 o'clock in the morning that by the time it's midday, everyone's laid out flat. So work with me. We're all going to take a deep breath and we're going to ease into these Olympic Games. I'm so excited.
It's going to be chilled. Going back to sprinting for a minute, I personally get so nervous watching sprinting because I just can't imagine training for 4 years and then it's over in between 9 and 11 seconds. How do you cope with that kind of pressure on the track?
It's crazy, isn't it? I actually don't know.
As in, when you look back, you're like, I don't know how I did that.
Legit, I don't know how I did that. And I think for a lot of people, they're like, but what do you think when you're in the starting blocks? I'm like, what we used to do, my coach would always say, just pick one thing, because if you overload if you think about too much, you're going to be, there's a term they use, it's called over-aroused, and I don't like saying it. But
all right, keep it PG.
I'm trying. But the psychological term is you're over-aroused, so you're overstimulated.
Yeah.
And you just want to make sure you're focused on one thing, so when that gun goes, you know, okay, is it your first 10 steps that you're driving out? Are you making sure that you're coming up into your transition at the right time? But pick one thing, because actually it's like white noise. When you get out the blocks, you just go, and you can't actually hear anything until you stop. Well, I didn't. And that's when you can hear the noise in the crowd. It's a really kind of weird space to be in. But the actual nerves, I think, are important. You need them. I think for anyone, nervous energy is always good. I think the secret is not to let it, like say, overwhelm you. So like have those nerves and know that actually, right, I am nervous because the stakes are high. If the stakes are high, or the higher the stakes, the more nerves you're going to have. It's just about learning to have the coping mechanisms to keep them under control. And that comes with experience, which is why sometimes you'll either see young athletes completely lose it and not able to deal with what's going on, or they just embrace it because they don't actually see the gravity of it, and they're like, okay, it's just another race, and off they go and off they win. And I envy those younger athletes, but it is definitely for me personally something that came with experience.
When you're managing that pressure now, when it's commentating, do you apply some of the same tactics? Because there's that great video of you from watching the World Champs, right? Bringing it up.
Oh,
right,
God.
And you're just shouting, and you can see the expression and the joy. But obviously, you've got to then reel that right back in,
Absolutely,
and talk to camera and be on point. So what's the balance there?
So let me tell you about that, right? So my BBC social team, shout out to the BBC social team, who constantly, they just know. I always say to them, I'm going to just be really calm, because I know that I don't want to start sweating. We're going to come straight back into the studio off the back of this 100 meters. I need to be in a calm place. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what it is. Like the gun goes and I can't help it.
That's everyone.
Yeah, everyone. And I literally, if you watch the video, I'm actually sat down. But as the gun goes, I jump up. And it's like it's in me just to kind of be like, I'm running every single step with those women because I'm fully aware of what that feels like. And it's a very difficult thing for live telly, because then I've got to, like you say, reel it in, gather my thoughts, because actually, I thought Shelley-Ann Fraser-Price was going to win, but no, it was Sha'Carri Richardson. Get your questions together, girl, because Michael Johnson wants to be able to
Michael Johnson wants to ask you something. Michael Johnson wants to ask me something. All right,
So I need to make sure that everything is as calm as it can be. But you make a really, really good point about bringing your athlete side to the broadcast side. I didn't ever think I'd feel that level of thrill again with a gun going off and going for as fast as you can. But there's something really special about a producer counting down in your ear to live telly. It's the same as on your marks, get set, go. And actually, as soon as I say on air, you're like, ooh, okay, let's go. And you're in the seat. And it's a performance, essentially. And you want to make sure that you are bringing the best of yourself to tell the best stories, because these guys have worked so flipping hard. Do you know what I mean? And you want to make sure that you're getting that across in the best possible way. So there are definitely elements of me as a broadcaster, as an athlete, that I bring to the table for this, for sure.
Mm-hmm. You talked about being envious of like the younger athletes who might just be like, yeah, let's just give it a go. Obviously, Louis Hinchliffe is 100 metres. Like he just smashed it out the park at the UK athletics. He's 21 years old. Like, what are your thoughts on him? How he'll fare this year?
He's unreal, and he's kind of come out of nowhere. So Louis Hinchcliffe he's coached by Carl Lewis, and I was like, why couldn't Carl Lewis be my coach? And I feel like it's like, what, Carl Lewis was available for coaching? Who knew? And it's like, this is somebody who wasn't really taking their track seriously, but obviously had a talent. And if you're spotted by a great, like a Carl Lewis or a Linford Christie, that sees potential in you, oh my goodness, by all means, do something with that. So I am interested to see how he goes. There is a big element of experience that needs to be put into perspective here. I think that's really important. But he's also an athlete who's won the NCAAs, which is the college championships, the 100 meters, which is a really hard thing to do. But then we all know that as athletes, actually, the guys who do well in the States at college level is quite early in the season. It's very difficult to keep that up until August. I want him to prove me wrong. I really want him to go out there and embrace it, just like how you said, and just be like, you know what, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Nothing to lose. Don't even think about it. Just go out there, compete, perform, and run. And I really hope we see that from Hinchcliffe.
What do you think about other GB chances then? we've got Dina and Daryl head to head.
Isn't that great?
Going on, and then when you've got Zarnell's going to be performing. I mean, we've got a real chance of getting some medals.
I could talk about this all day. You have not got enough time for me, and I can already see my team loitering. I think what's really interesting in the sprints, you mentioned Darren and Dina. When you've got a domestic rivalry, it's lovely because actually Dina was by herself for quite some time, but Daryl and Dina, interestingly, it's very much like a bit like tennis and football. They are very, very aware of each other from quite a young age. They race each other like as under 15s, under 17s. They're both from South London. They know who very well. So to come to a senior level now where you're neck and neck and you are going for Olympic final places, it's a really lovely thing to see. But Dina's always going to have a little bit of the edge just because her times are faster. But what Daryl Nita has, she's got the title of being, she's got the honour of being the Olympic finalist from Tokyo in the 100 metres. That's a really hard thing to do. So it's going to be great to see them go. It's going to be difficult for both of them because what we're seeing with the Americans and the Jamaicans, as usual, they're flying. Sha'Carri Richardson is out of this world and absolutely, she's on fire this season. And I think she will be for many seasons to come. She stays fit. And then you move into the men. Zarnell, a few injury problems this season, but the men's 100 metres, Noah Lyles seems to be the name for a lot of people. I actually don't think he's going to win it.
No, I don't think he's going to win it.
Yeah, see, there you go. You're on my page. I don't think he's going to win it. I think the 100 metres requires it's a killer instinct that I don't know if he has it. I might listen. I'll happily eat humble pie.
Yeah,
if
for
he proves
sure.
me wrong.
We're allowed to guess, aren't we?
We are allowed to guess, and speculate. But I think for someone like Noah Lyles, he's a phenom in the sense that he's such a character, and it'd be great for him to win it. It'd be great for the sport. But you got Marcel Jacobs. He's had a couple tough years, but he's the defending Olympic champion. You're not going to lie down and let someone just take that from you. So these are the kind of matchups that I love to see, especially in the sprints, because you never know, like you say, what's going to happen. But the women's feels a little bit more clear-cut than the men's this year.
Yeah, for sure. Well, on the rivalries, obviously a big one that we're going to be talking about probably is Kerr and Ingebrigtsen, and how that's built and we can you can say who you think is going to win out of that, but how important are those sort of now online beefs? When back in your day, when everyone was just like, you're versus them, how important is it to the athletes? How important is it to the sport? What it's kind of it builds momentum.
Do you know what it is? It's entertainment, isn't it? I love it.
Yeah, I do too.
I actually love it, and I think with the Ingebrigtsen Kerr thing is really interesting because they both don't want to talk about each other, but they do, if that makes sense. So it's like
side-eye comments.
Yeah, you kind of want to ask Josh a question about Jakob Ingebrigtsen because he's going to bite, and Ingebrigtsen always bites anyway. And I love translating the Norwegian press when he's talking about Josh Kerr. I'm like, ooh, okay. But what we are seeing for someone like Ingebrigtsen, he is unbelievably frustrated that for the last 2 World Championships, 2 British men have come along and beat him. So Jake Whiteman, Josh Kerr. And I think what's scary for Jakob Ingebrigtsen is that they know how to beat him in finals. And that's the difference. Because Jakob's quite good in the heats. He's really lovely to watch. Just a beautiful runner. But in the finals, you can just sense the vulnerability. And Josh and Jake, in the last couple of seasons, have been able to completely, take advantage of that. But then when we look at Josh, oh my gosh, that Scottish flame, Josh, he's just so confident and he's growing every year and he knows that he wants it so bad. But so does Jakob. And Jakob ran a really, really quick time, I think in Monaco, just a couple of days ago, the Diamond League. And he means business. You know what I mean? He means business because he knows that the last 2 World Championships he's not been able to get it over the line because of the British boys. But, Josh is on him. Josh wants him as well this year. Why not? He's a world champion, Olympic champion as well.
Do you have a favourite event? I'm going to assume that you love watching the 100 metres because that's what you competed in. But is there one event that you, track and field, anything, all of it, the whole of the Olympics, is there one event that you just go, I can't fathom how people are so good at this?
Yeah. In athletics, 800 metres.
Right.
Because I am not designed to run far. I'm designed to run fast. The 800 metre people, I call them people, they're in their own league. This is like a long sprint. They just don't stop. And I'm like, aren't you not tired? They just keep on going. And it blows my mind. And you see someone like Keely Hodgkinson, who she's my strongest gold medal favourite at these games, who is just so fierce with it, like so young, so fierce, so vibrant. And I know that she is going to go out there and nail it. So it's just how they're able to tactically move in the right spaces. I'd be a mess. I'd be tripping people up, I'd be water stopping at 300 metres to go. Like, it'd be way too much for me. But someone like Keely, so measured and so composed and calm. The event that I love at the Olympics is gymnastics, because spatial awareness is not something that everyone's blessed with. It's like
the beam.
the beam. Like, I tried to get on a beam maybe 5 weeks ago, and it's like, I'm looking at my phone here, it's the same length as the mobile phone, and I was like, you're doing cartwheels off of what? And it's things that I think for anyone watching Olympic Games, it's things that are a spectacle that makes people just sit down and think, how are you doing that? Like, what in your body, what muscles are you engaging in order to be able to do that? So for me, the gymnastics is amazing, and I'm really looking forward to seeing someone like Simone Biles. I think she's just
comeback story.
I'm just obsessed. Like, Tokyo, like you say, it was so tough for her. The twisties, everybody learned a new word. We were all experts all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden now she's back, and she really wants to kind of redeem herself. So I think the gymnastics is going to be such a hot ticket as well.
Agree. I think it's going to be really good. Jeanette, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm
Thank you so much.
buzzing.
Good.
Yeah,
Glad.
very
That
excited.
sprint out, yeah.
Still going to be nervous at that.
Yeah,
those
please do.
sprints.
Stay nervous for 2
yeah.
weeks.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
please. Thank you, guys.
Denise Lewis, welcome to the Runners World podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. We are very much enjoying getting excited about the Olympics today.
You have to be excited about
Right?
the Olympics.
So-
I mean, it literally, I think when the clock turns into the Olympic year in January the 1st, I'm already starting those. Olympic juices are flowing. I just can't wait. And as we gravitate to the business end of it, it's just like, let's get rid of the rest of the sport and get down to business.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we just asked Jeanette about this, and you continue to live your life in 4-year cycles, from competing now through to commentating. How do you manage that? How do you sort of, like, as you say, an Olympic year starts, you're in game mode. Like, do you bring much from your sporting career? Do you treat the same? Is it like go time, training, prep, all that sort of stuff?
It really is the same. Obviously, because I'm working for the BBC as well, we obviously are covering so much of the sport, some like wall-to-wall and unparalleled free-to-air coverage. And so you have to get into the mindset as well, because we know what it means to, the general public. It's their opportunity to watch and listen to sports that they don't ordinarily watch. Obviously, we're in athletics, and so people get that, but there are so many other sports out there that people just like, they stumble over, because it's just like penetrating through your devices or your TV and listening to your radio, so you can't escape it. But in terms of prep, absolutely the same. So whether it's prepping the wardrobe, it's important, because they are very, very long days. We just had Budapest last year, and the weather was very unpredictable. It was so hot, so you couldn't stay in the same outfit anyway, because you were just sweating. But also the knowledge, making sure that you're up to speed with all the performances, any stories that are lurking behind the scenes that you can unearth to bring that colour and flavour to the listener or the viewer is so important. Getting your rest. I've been burning the candle. You can hear it in my voice right now. But trying to make sure I'm rested in the next week or so. Taking my vitamins, doing all the things that I know I would be doing as an athlete, hydration, all of those things come into play when you're doing this coverage and doing this job, because they are long hours. And so in between the sessions as well, we're looking to nourish ourselves and keep ready and keep fresh. No one wants to see a tired looking Denise Lewis on BBC, do you?
It's interesting what you say, because obviously as a commentator you're covering so many different disciplines, so many different events, but then you're an Olympic gold medalist in the heptathlon, where you're covering all different events and disciplines. Like, as an athlete in your days, like, how do you prepare and get in the zone for so many different events over the course of a competition?
It's in the training, like everything else. It's how you prepare, and so when I was a heptathlete, working out the best schedule that suited my body, that allowed me to recover and go again, was just the winning formula. If you can't get that bit right, you've got no chance in surviving during the competition. Getting all your nutrition right, so you're not coming into the evening sessions fatigued, was everything. And so I just think the more you prep anything and prepare mentally, physically, the better you give yourself the opportunity to do well.
Yeah. And of the events, were there ones that you were like, oh yeah, this is my favourite, and oh no, got to get through this? And which ones were they?
All heptathletes will look forward to the events that they're really good at. It's just a natural thing. Jess, Ennis always was, let's bring it on. Hurdles, first event. She knows she's going to smash through it, as she did in this very arena 12 years ago, where she just literally lit the stadium alight. On the first event, they knew it was game on. And so for me, it was looking forward to shot put. It was an event that I turned around during the course of my career, from being a very weak event to actually a game changer. I could eat into any deficit in those first two events with the third event of the shot put.
Can we talk a bit about the legacy of the heptathlon now for British sport? Obviously, at the forefront of it, your performance, and now we've got KJT sitting proud, world champ. Like, that's ahead of these games is such a momentous occasion. Jess, Ennis here in the room, like the legacy of this event now for Team GB. How important, like when you look about how you your time competing, and like how it's changed and grown, and just how this has become sort of one of those, a bit like cycling has as well. We've got Laura Kenny's here. Like, you just have this sort of like these sports that the British do really well.
Yeah, I just think it's that inspiration. Someone watching is going, wow, she did it. Why can't I? And I think anyone who watched me in Sydney would have known that I was injured, but still made it through. And whether that was the inspiration, whether it makes people want to do heptathlon, at least people don't have the fear of the event. A lot of people think, oh my goodness, I don't want to even do all of that training. But they realise that you can. It's workable, and you can be really successful at it. And so we've got, yes, Kat, Jess, her predecessor, Kelly Sotherton, and now we've got young Jade O'Dowda, who's also qualified. I can't contain myself. I'm so excited for her. She missed out on qualification for Budapest last year, when I personally think she should have gone, but she didn't, and that's spurred her to work harder, and now she'll be going on that journey to Paris, which is, it's just amazing.
Absolutely. Can we talk a little bit about magazine covers?
Yes.
We've got KGT is now on the front cover of British Vogue.
Woo!
Right? Shakira Richardson's on Vogue cover. You're on a cover.
Of course.
Of course.
With Jess and Laura, we've all got covers.
We've all got covers. So, was this part of when you were competing? Was this ever something that you thought would happen? Do you see this change in the sort of like the media landscape? How athletes, fashion, the crossover, this sort of building up the athletes, not just as performers, but also as like iconic figures?
I have been waiting for this for what feels like a lifetime. When I was at the height of my career, getting a front cover was just like, sorry, you're not relatable. You're too muscular. It's not attractive. People will be more turned off by that. It won't sell. That's the kind of narrative that we were dealing with back then. So fast forward, 24 years later, I wish it hadn't taken this long. Technology is moving at a quicker rate than our people's mindsets to why women, the body beautiful, that beauty comes in so many different forms. And so to have these women as actual icons and showcasing how fantastic their bodies move and how inspirational and aspirational that can be is just everything to me. And I would like to see more of it, because it's not just about the body, it's about telling people's story. And that is the most powerful thing you can ever do, because there is always someone out there that will relate to you. you are all influencers in your own way, and so having the opportunity to capitalize that on that, showcasing the form and the narrative is perfect.
Yeah, we saw that a bit earlier. We saw a clip about the Olympics this year, and we heard how it's not a one size fits all competition. Like, athletes can be any body shape. Do you think that competitions like the Olympics have changed and that they are becoming more inclusive of body shapes, backgrounds, sports? How do you think that's changed over the years?
I think it is changing. In some parts, really good. Obviously, we've got more. In Team GB, there'll be more female athletes than ever before. That gender parity has been really emphasised. More events for women as well, which is great. The whole Olympic movement understands that journey, and I think the whole conversation around body types and how varied they are and what they're meant to do is reflective on the sport. As I said, it's nice. It feels like it shouldn't be alien to have this. And I think that's the beauty of the Olympics, because it can bring all that in one big melting pot where it just all looks normal, and I know this is very much Olympic focused, but this is where how important parasport is as well. Body beautiful can just do anything when the mind is determined.
I think that that idea of not just the end race, the end competition, but the story behind the people taking part, I think that's more and more become integral to the whole story behind the Olympics. It's not just waiting for that final meet, the 100-meter final. It's actually like, how did that person get there? What's their background? What's inspired them to get there? What's been the hardships that they've gone through? When you're delivering the coverage, how much now has that changed? Do you really enjoy telling more of those stories rather than just being like, the sport is happening?
I think the athletes themselves are taking that by the horns,
Right.
but actually
Yeah.
they're actually telling their own stories, which I think is different, and it does put a different lens on how you cover and you help them tell their stories. We have to remember, we're there to summarize performance essentially, and within that we can weave in any nuggets about their journeys. But what I've seen recently is a lot of athletes telling their own stories. You look across all the social media platforms. This is why BBC Sounds and all the online information and access is so important, because people can actually take their time on their terms and access those stories, which is perfect, because the more you buy into the individual, the more you're likely to follow and keep at it and want to see how they get on. There's always a community behind every individual. There'll be a teacher, there'll be a postman or someone who's delivered your letter, or just really impacting how your life has come to be and where you are at. That, I think, makes it really special, because everyone gets the Olympics. We know that it is the pinnacle. So to have the opportunity to wear your country's colours with all the history, steeped in history, is everything, and everyone wants that touch point.
Yeah. What's some predictions?
Oh no.
Has to be asked. Where do you see GB in terms of, like, have you got any sort of unknown? We were talking about Lou Hinchcliffe earlier. Do you think that, like, someone like he's going to suddenly shine through as this sort of like undiscussed talent in all of this, or are you putting your money on, like, clear favourites? Where are you?
The thing with favourites, or people that, not necessarily favourites, but people that have been there before, had the experience before, it means you can weigh up where you might have made mistakes, or where things might not have gone your way, and utilise that in this 4-year preparation cycle, and not be overwhelmed. You hear people like Keely Hodgkinson talk about having no fear. It's just another race, because that's the sort of the mindset you have to have. Easier said than done when it's your first Olympics. Everything just feels magnified. It's huge. And so in order to control that, you lean into the experience a little bit, But I'm excited by Phoebe Gill in the women's 800. I mean, wow, what a phenomenal year she's had already. So watching how she's already racing with such maturity, but how does that translate to going through the rounds, coming in against names that she would only seen on TV before, and how she'll cope with that. You know, that's a different mindset. That's got nothing to do with ability.
Yeah. And do you think that you have to, it's such a hard balance between using an Olympic Games as a time to shine and also as an education as an athlete, right? You've got to see this time to be like, I need to do the best performance I can, but I've got to be able to think about the next one.
No, you mustn't think about the next one. You must be in the moment. You must be in the moment, because it could be your last, right? And so you can't think about the next time, but you've just got to. Those lessons come because you're doing it. And there'll be moments in the village that you can be reflective. There'll be takeaways post. But in these next couple of weeks, you've got to live every experience, from what the athletes have experienced already, which is the kitting out process, which is now more of an experience than it ever was before. You know, it's just got better and better. Team GB has done that well. They're capitalising, as you said, on their social media platforms, how to tell their stories, how people can engage with them. And once you're in the games, it's about getting your head down, remembering why you're there.
Nice. Denise Lewis, thank you so much for joining us, having a chat about the Olympics. Very much looking forward to seeing you on the telly.
I can't
Absolutely.
wait.
And all the
I can't
outfits.
wait. All the outfits. I'll try my very best to stay in my seat, but you can guarantee there will be some jump off the sofa.
Clips.
We do
we
want
them clips.
We want the
them
memes.
social clips. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Colin Jackson, welcome to the Runners World podcast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us at this Olympic event. Everyone's getting excited. We've been talking about the 4-year cycle, and as someone who's probably been living their life in a 4-year cycle for many decades now.
Yeah, decades, centuries.
How do you feel about it still? When does it kick in for you? At what point do you suddenly go, it's the Olympic year, here we go?
Do you know, it's one of these things that you never, ever, ever forget when it's an Olympic year up and coming. So you're always very excited about it. And I described it to somebody quite recently that it's like being at Christmas. You know, you get prepared for Christmas when you're a kid, and you know it's on the 25th of December, and you're building towards it, but you've got to keep yourself calm, right, before you open all those presents, right? Well, it's exactly the same thing about this, because you see the best, the very best at what they do in the world of sport, and in a world that I absolutely love and have a huge passion for. So when you get to build up on it slowly but surely, and then you go into the Olympic year, and then the athletes are starting to produce the goods, you know, their performances are outstanding, all of a sudden it's like, we're here. So we're here, 10 days to go.
Yeah. And obviously, there's lots to look forward to. But in terms of, all your commentating you've done at the Olympics so far, there's probably many, but, what's your, standout moment in the commentary box? The biggest surprise or the greatest memory as a commentator?
That's a question, because I've seen so many great performances. Where do we begin? I mean, there's so many. I mean, obviously, Super Saturday was just phenomenal. That was just great to witness that, you know, to be in the stadium and see the audience there literally appreciate the magnitude that these young people are producing for us to celebrate, you know. So for me, I was just honored to be part of the team there, seeing that. I remember going and watching Usain in Beijing, breaking Michael's 200-meter world record. His 100 meters was just phenomenal. So we were all waiting to see what he could do in the 2, and he broke Michael Johnson's record there, and it was just an outstanding performance for somebody that was so young. So I've seen so many great performances that make it so exciting for me still.
What's it like being in the commentary box with an Olympian, watching their record be broken?
There.
Yeah. He wasn't happy. Put it that way. He wasn't happy. Yeah, he wasn't happy. But it was always great, because it just gives us more fuel, doesn't it? You can imagine.
Let's talk about some hurdling.
Yeah.
In terms of British talent, how much sort of scale and hope do we place upon the selection process? We've got all this talent within the sprint world. I don't think the hurdling world is getting as much focus or as much attention as it deserves. how do you, as a, is that your distance, that your the thing that you loved doing? It's time for an advert. And now back to the podcast.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's quite a frustrating time at this moment because I was coaching Andrew Pozzi, and when he had to retire because of injury, it was huge disappointment for me because he put so much time and effort in during the winter to get himself back. And for him to, his last race being 13:23 early season, he did great gym personal best, great sprinting personal best. He was just on the rise, and we generally thought that he had a shot at getting a medal at the Olympic Games, and that's what we were working towards. And to have that really taken away from him was really frustrating. And of course now it's Tade who's left in there literally on his own to go out there and try and do that. And for me, it's an exciting time because he's still young. His coach Joanna Hayes has been an Olympic champion herself, so Joe knows what it's like to get to the very highest level. And so the most important thing for him is to get this experience, because this is the first time he's experiencing anything like this. And I think for me, it's going to be really important that he just settles into it and tries to do the best he can do with no expectation. That is always it. Because as an athlete, you want to have the expectation on yourself. You don't need anybody else to be doing that for you, And so for me, I just want him to go out there and do the best he can possibly do in that circumstance situation, because the event is super, super hot at this moment.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Who was your prediction? We're going to get some predictions from you. Recent performance, Monaco performances. Do you think you're going to see some?
I mean, Grant obviously is flying at this particular moment, and he'd tell you himself that he should win the Olympic title. He should run that, but he'll have to make sure he goes under 13 seconds. That isn't always easy to do, especially when the pressure's on. There's going to be 3 or 4 people who can run between 13.10 and 13 flat, and that doesn't help either. That just piles on the pressure for you. Going into Tokyo, everybody said, well, Grant Holloway got to win. There's no way he can win. He didn't win. So it just tells you the pressure of the Olympic Games and what can happen. So, yeah, it's going to be a right raw battle between Jamaica and the United States yet again, it seems. And who takes a gold medal? Well, is it going to be third time again for Jamaica? Who knows? They won 2016 and they won Tokyo. So, yeah.
Yeah. And obviously, hurdlers are phenomenal sprinters in their own right. Like, how can we encourage more sprinters or just runners generally to try the hurdles and acquire those special skills that you have to get over literally very high bars? Very high.
I think it's something you got to do from the beginning. And when I say the beginning, like really early part of your career, really, because you've got to get away from the fear factor, because they're not only just high, they're heavy and they hurt. So when you hit them, they bite you back, right? So you don't really want that to happen. So you've got to get into that quite early in your career. And then once you kind of do that, then you're kind of all right. But the sprinting comes really for us after we spent a lot of time high hurdling. So we're not always the best sprinters, but when we grow into the hurdles event, well, we can then kind of switch over and do a little bit of sprinting as well, which I think most of the sprinters find that very frustrating.
Stop taking our thing.
What event is it that you most look forward to commentating on, to watching? What is it the thing that you perhaps admire the most because it seems so difficult to do? Not just track and field, but the Olympics in general. Is there one thing that you watch and you go, every time that boggles my mind how people are able to do that?
It has to be gymnastics, right, for me, because I see lots of parallels between my event, I'm not saying my sport, but my event as a high hurdler, and gymnastics itself, because we're quite flexible as high hurdlers. We're quite strong for our weight because we need to be agile as well, like the gymnasts are. And I kind of have that little bit of, I have that empathy in what they're doing, because it's, for me, I feel very similar to them. So I always marvel when I see what they can do, because they're human, right? And some of the things they do is not human.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember at school doing a forward roll thinking, whoa.
Yeah.
That's massive.
It's always the Olympic rings.
Yeah.
That
I mean,
one for me is just when they're doing the cross. And
Yeah.
Going, Why
How?
are your shoulders not
Yeah,
falling
nothing,
off? Like,
nothing,
yeah,
nothing.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
just, and they just, it's like it's just solid,
Yeah.
but it's not. It's incredible. It's incredible. It's incredible. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you talked about Super Saturday, obviously we all know that, and that got a huge amount of hype on social media, and it kind of made athletics kind of mainstream in a sense. Do you think that over the years the Olympics has changed, and especially in a more digital age, that it's just got more popular and more mainstream among like just everyday people? How do you think it's grown?
Yeah, I think the Olympics always gives athletes platforms. And when I use the word athletes, I mean across the board, right? So not just track and field, but athletes, sports people. And I think nowadays the youngsters are so on their social media as well, it kind of brings their life to the everyday person much easier. And when you can do that and you can market yourself in that way, I think you're generally blessed. But every 4 years, the Olympic Games is the magic thing that really, it's the real catalyst to making that magic come alive. So you can never, ever just diss the Olympics and say, oh, let's forget the Olympics because I'd be a superstar anyway. Maybe not. So, yeah. So it's that combination, really.
Do you think that a lot of you see like characters now within these different sports, and you've got like Noah Lyles, and you've got these sort of like big personalities, and they've always been present. There's always been very much part of sprinting, especially. There's quite peacocking and showmanship is very much part and parcel of it. How important are those to carrying the sport forward? How is there a side where it becomes possibly detrimental? Is it too much character?
No, as long as you win.
Yeah.
You know, because ultimately track and field certainly is about winning, right?
Yeah.
That's what you want to do. And when you're in that environment, you're that type of personality, you better deliver the goods as well. You know, you can't just be all flamboyant and nothing, you know. And so, and Noah's been able to do that, you know, triple world champion. So as long as you can do that, that is acceptable. I love it personally myself when I see it, because it just gives you more of a 360, you know, a three-dimensional view of an athlete and a person, because they are people. And as Noah is, that's actually how he is. He doesn't perform to the cameras. This is just the way I am, and that's how he rolls. And so I absolutely love that side of it as well. I wish it was a little bit more like that in our day.
Yeah, because you see sort of sprinters on the track, and the camera goes through each one. They've got their little move, Johan Blake with his like tiger claws, and Usain Bolt spinning discs and whatever. Do you think athletes feed off the atmosphere of massive crowds?
Yeah, they do. They absolutely do. I mean, if you think about, and I'm going to just go to another sport completely. Look how Djokovic performs when the crowd really get on him.
Yeah, when they hate him, he loves it.
Right, exactly. So you know the effect that a crowd can have on athletes. So on a positive, like, luckily in track, we don't have people that really hate people. So we're all right. But you do feed off that. It's that sense of that, you know, point percentage that would just be the thing that pushes you across the line. And I'm sure Jess can tell you in London 2012, that was one of the things that made her so successful, was that literally went from the start of the hurdles, and she ran an incredible time there, and the crowd were just screaming. She just felt like, I'm on it today. And it does make a big difference.
Makes a huge difference. How much time have we got? Are we all right for a few more minutes? Great. Do you back to the sort of the ongoing sort of, we take the Ingebrigtsen and Kerr kind of building sort of rivalries? How important are those to sort of like the sport? Do you see that or in if you take Team GB, you've got Dina and Daryl, and you've got these sort of like little sort of battles going on.
Love it.
Love it.
You can see straight up, I'm loving it. I love it. Because, you know, I had them myself in that sense. And you know, when it's all over and all said and done, people start talking to people like there was nothing happening, right? So I absolutely love that. And also, you don't have to like everybody.
No.
So, you know, if Josh doesn't like Ingebrigtsen that much, well, c'est la vie, right? Yeah. It just happens they're in the same race, so it just gives a little bit more fuel. So I kind of love that, and it creates a little interest. And they're never too abusive to each other. I mean, if it becomes like quite violently abusive, then you're like, well, hang on, you have to rein that right in, gentlemen. Yeah. But it's not like that, you know. And we have something something tangible to watch, right? We can all just go, here we go.
Exactly.
Let us see it play out then, lads, off you go. So, you know, we have the blessing of being in that environment too.
Who have you got your money on then when it comes to GB athletes who you think are going to perform the medal hopes? Are you thinking Keeley? Are you seeing where do you think the medals are going to go?
Oh, we got a few real genuine shots, of course. Keeley, you mentioned that. Josh, of course, we mentioned him as well. Molly in the pole vault, you can't forget that. In the men's 400 metres, we've got two great 400 metre runners, in Matt and Charlie. And you got to think about what they potentially can do is all about how they navigate the rounds. So they've got a really good shot of it as well. Ben, in the 800 metres, he just run 142. And people may go, oh, well, he was 4th or 5th, I think, in that particular race. No, he's now can run 142. We can see that. So he's got the speed in him. But also, you've got to reflect on what he did the previous year when he didn't have those kind of performances behind him. He still came on with a bronze. So he told us and showed us he can race, and so that in itself is takes us on to another level. So to me, we got a lot of shots, and we'll have. And I've just talked about our real shots there, but also we've got another layer of athletes who will make finals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you're in finals, anything literally can happen.
Yeah.
And I know that's quite a bit of a cliche, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Colin Jackson, thank you so much for joining us.
My
Thank
pleasure.
Pleasure to talk to you and see you on the TV.
Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
see you then.
See you later.
Gabby, Logan, welcome to the Runners World podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Before we even talk about these so-called Olympians, let's talk about you.
So-called Olympians.
Yes. Before we talk about the Olympians, let's talk about your running.
Okay.
Rumour has it, just taking on half marathons these days.
Yeah, just churning them out. One.
First one in 20 years.
First one in
London
20
Landmarks
years,
Half
London Landmarks, yeah, in April. But since then, I have carried on running. Haven't done any more. I intended to do a 10K in May, and that came and went. Didn't do it. So I haven't done anything of volume. But when I was in Berlin for the Euros, I started doing Barry's boot camp, and you do sprinting and I thought, oh, when I come home, I'm going to be so much quicker now. All this speed and didn't translate. Yeah, I went out for my kind of regular 10K route, and time didn't come down. So yeah, I'm clearly doing something wrong.
Have you always been a runner?
No.
No.
I found it. I started running when I stopped gymnastics because I thought I've got to do something to feel good and keep fit and just like exercise, and it was easy and cheap and effective. And I've always wanted to feel better than I do when I run. I always feel like it's always an effort.
Yeah, agree.
I had one moment in an 18K run I was doing for the half marathon where for about half a K I had runner's high, where I was like, this is it, this is what they talked about, this is it. Yeah. And then we started to go on this really steep climb, and the pain kicked in, and I just felt horrible, and I thought, oh, it's gone. The runner's high came and went very quickly.
You got it that one time.
I got one time, yeah. I did get a little bit during the London Landmarks, actually, for about a K. I felt really good. But yeah, why does nobody ever tell you that you never actually feel really good?
I know. I mean, it's a sort of, we try not to put it too much in the magazine. We don't want to bring it down too much. But there is maybe at the back on the last page.
Do you know what, I think when it kind of like a Sunday afternoon when you haven't run yet and you think I must get out for a run, and then it starts raining and you think I've got to go. Strangely, they're the times when you feel the best. You kind of come back and you just, because you feel so good that you've done it, and the rain, for some reason, it feels good to run in the rain. So yeah, it can surprise. A sunny morning can sometimes be quite disappointing.
It's sort of when you go out for a run as well in the rain, and then you see another runner who's also out in the rain, you sort of have that little nod. You're like, yeah.
There was a lady and I doing that a few Saturdays ago. We kind of we passed each other about 5 times, nodding. We were both out early. Yeah. Why are you doing this route this way?
When we enter the Olympic year and the work still builds up and all that sort of stuff, do you have a routine that you like to get into? I mean, not including running or including running perhaps, but are you very much focused on the Olympics when January 1 ticks round? Is that like time for you to go? How does it build up for you?
Well, obviously this year has been loaded already for me with big events. So I've just come off the back of doing the Euros, and I've also started another podcast, The Sports Agent, so that's been taking up a lot of time. I do the rugby at the beginning of the year. So while I know it's Olympic year, it's not as if for the minute it goes the 1st of January, I'll focus on the Olympics, because actually when you do the athletics, you're doing it all the time anyway. So the beginning of this year, we were in Glasgow for the World Indoors, which was a great way actually to start the year from an athletics perspective, seeing where everybody was in there. Not everybody, but everybody everybody who turned out in Glasgow in their development and where they were fitness-wise, and obviously people like Georgia Bell kind of like coming good and going, oh, hang on, this could be somebody that's going to shine this year. So I think you kind of always on it, and every week with Diamond Leagues, looking at results and seeing where people are, smashing PBs or getting world records even, and seeing kind of how the year's panning out, where you start to look at kind of predictions of things and how it might go. And then team selections and trials are always very exciting. So it's constantly there, really. And I think when you're doing different sports, you find your social media kind of tells you quite a lot, because you're always following those things, so you're getting the information. And luckily I've got a family that is interested in it, so yeah, of course. So we talk about it and we watch it, and I have colleagues obviously that I speak to a lot, and so it's kind of always there, really. I never feel like I have to sit down. I will do more concerted prep in the weeks in advance, but I never have to sit down and treat it like a new topic. It's not like doing German GCSE or something.
And obviously you must sort of go into a bit of autopilot when you sort of start with the Olympics. Obviously it's like 2 weeks long. It's quite a block.
Yeah,
do you sort of, how
I
do
like
you
that.
cope with, do you sort of get on well with that kind of intensity?
Yeah, I like the kind of immersiveness of a big event, whether it's the World Athletics Championships or Olympics or a World Cup, and you just focusing on that all the time. And because you're abroad generally, or you're staying in a hotel, you don't have to empty the dishwasher and put the washing on and do
worth it for that.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just-
well, you haven't got all the minutiae and the kind of
yeah.
the clutter of life. You're just focusing on your work and dealing with your colleagues and friends, and who colleagues are friends, and we get on well and we have a nice time together. And that means I usually carve out some time in the day to either go for a run or go to the gym. So I get into quite a routine. I like my little routine, and I hate it if something, like my husband will say, oh, we might come to Paris, and I go, oh, well, no, you don't have to.
Yes, please.
It's like, I've got my, I don't have to entertain you. I want to just do what I'm doing. And I feel like I get the best out of my work when I'm doing that. I have, when my kids were little, thinking, well, when I went to Beijing, they were 3, and I was away for 3 weeks, and it was just awful being away from small ones for that long. So I thought, okay, the next time I'll get them out. And it was the World Cup in South Africa when they came out, and they were about 5, and England screwed up the group stage. They ended up watching, I think it was Ghana, USA, because I got them tickets for what I thought was an England game. I ended up going to a completely different city, and they'd flown all that way. I saw them for about 2 days, and they had a great time, but without me. So I decided after that, forget it.
Not bothering.
Yeah, I'm not paying for them to all come out, so that they can have a lovely holiday while I just
really hard work.
Yeah, exactly.
How has commentating changed? The presentation was talking about the scale of broadcast that's taking place. The Olympics is going to be 8 a.m. till 10 p.m. channels online constantly. There's all this sort of the way that people are absorbing the information and the media that's being put out there now. How's it changed for you? What do you like? What's not so hard to deal with? What are the complexities of the current sort of
setup?
Yeah,
I think people expect now to have what they want when they want, don't they? Oh, I want to watch this. Where is it? This sport. Where's that sport? And actually, we had the most dramatic change in London, where we streamed at one point 26 different events. We can't do that with what we've got this time, but we will be showing the most comprehensive coverage we possibly can. However, because of French, I don't know if anybody's discussed this yet, because of French work rules, we're not allowed to do anything less than 11 hours after you last come off air, which means that we can't do the morning session and the evening session, which we normally would. So Jeanette's doing the studio in the morning, so she'll be covering that off, but it means Jeanette won't be at the track in the evening then, and we can't be. So we'll be getting our morning kind of fix from watching that, which will be very different actually, because obviously normally we'd be there. That was the case in Rio, for example. The last time we were on site, that was some shift we were putting in, because we were miles away from the track, and we were getting up at 5:30, going to the tracks, have to get makeup and all that, do the morning session, we'd travel back to the hotel, we'd about 2 hours, and we'd go back to the track, and so we were getting back at midnight. So it's a long day, but you're there all the time, and it's great, and that's where you want to be. So it will feel a bit weird this time, actually, not doing that. I guess I get to see a lot more other sport, which will be quite good, and get a bit more perspective maybe of the whole Olympics, because sometimes you get quite immersed in your thing, in your lane, and what you're doing. So it will feel slightly strange, that, but I think we've all got used to this kind of coverage, this comprehensive coverage, and also leaning on people when you need to, and people having, some days it'll be all about cycling, other days the morning session will be swimming, that will be dominating. So I think we kind of blend quite well as a team.
Do you have a favourite event?
Within the athletics?
Yeah.
I have favourite people.
That's
So
okay, that's
yeah,
interesting.
so I'm wanting those people. At the moment, there's a lot going on for me in the women's 800 meters. So that's where I'm really excited about that. But also the men's 800 meters as well. We've got great talent there, and 1500 in both as well. So the middle distances where they weren't perhaps as kind of exciting a few years ago, suddenly that's where it's all at, I think, for me.
And do you think that the all the background noise around these events, all the characters, and the fact that they're sort of building these great sort of beefs between each other?
Yeah,
and
there's so many head-to-heads.
So many head-to-heads. And that really is elevating the story before the Olympics. It even gets there. Everyone's just like, he's going to, Ingrid Britson, did you see him in Monaco? He's going to smash everyone. And everyone else is like, no, Kerr's going to get him. It's just
it's brilliant. It's brilliant. And I think that kind of, that rivalry feels very real. That's not something that's been... I don't think there's any artifice in that one. I think, sometimes you wonder how much people are really trash-talking each other, and, Noah Lyles comes out and says stuff, and you kind of not quite sure what he means. What's he saying? But is it really going to try and run a 400 metres? But he's obviously, kind of a character, and we need characters in this sport to elevate the sport because it's a lot of competition out there. And so head-to-heads are great, and one of the great head-to-heads will be in the women's 400 metre hurdles. I mean, Sydney's obviously got the edge, but Femke's now just got a new 400 hurdles European record, so that I feel like there could be another world record in that final potentially for the person that wins it. So that would be very exciting. So I think there's so many great head-to-heads going on around the place, and as you say, the sport needs that, and I don't feel like it's actually artificial. I feel like it's really genuine.
We talk about the head-to-heads and the kind of it's between him and him, her and her sort of thing. Do you think there are going to be any major upsets or dramas, and if so, what events do you
there
see
definitely
them?
will be, because it can't all go to the to the form and the occasion. That moment when people step out in an Olympic stadium, will having had an Olympic experience be the thing that separates? Will some people who are new to that arena, will that be the moment they kind of everything just changes and they don't produce it? Will Phoebe Gill not give a damn because she's just doesn't seem to have any fear? Will she be the person that just takes the moment? So there are so many different permutations and different reasons why people can shine. And then, you look at the form that Dina was in Tokyo, and physically it went wrong for her, with something that, she perhaps couldn't have predicted. So I think, and we're not even talking about something like Kat, we kind of don't know yet really what kind of physical state Kat's in at the moment, but she's had so much experience and she seems to have righted so many problems over the years that you think she knows how to cope with everything now. So, but there'll be a moment where we go, no, and people fall, don't they? Especially in middle distance races, and people don't navigate heats well. And what are you doing? Why are you holding anything back in an Olympic heat? Just get through. So, I think we'll all have moments where we have our head in our hands, wondering how that happened, or
How do you adjust then in the commentary box when those things happen? Like, because you can sit there being, I predict that this is going to be as it plays out. They're going to go with the pacer here. This is how this person likes to race off the front. We're all set, and then all of a sudden, someone comes out and they're just like, "Oh, right, guys, we've got to change what we were going to say."
Yeah, when you hear them in commentary, kind of, especially in longer race, you can hear kind of Paula and Steve talking to each other like, "Oh my gosh, what did you see that split? Did you see that last lap?" And you think, "Oh, something's happening right now." But in the studio, we're all kind of going, what? Making kind of faces at each other like, what's happening here? And it is that moment where you see somebody. I remember I was sitting next to Michael Johnson in Rio when Wade van Niekerk got his 400 world record, and that came from nowhere. Was he in lane 9? Was he that came from nowhere? And obviously he had great form, but we just did not predict that was going to happen in that. I think he was the last person kind of mentioned going in. Do you know how sometimes they're talking, commentators are talking people up, and then they go, "Oh, and don't forget him," kind of thing, And so Michael, obviously, he's incredibly gracious in those moments, and just goes, somebody's got to run faster than me. But that's a moment I would say that was one of those shocking ones where you go, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Do you have a favourite moment that you've ever commentated on?
I think in terms of athletics success and what happened over that Mo Farah era, you look back to kind of those back-to-back double goals. I think you look back now, and I think at the time I remember saying to the guys, we're taking this for granted. We're taking this success as if it's normal, and this is not normal to have somebody who is just able to keep achieving like this. And I think, it's proven how hard it is. It's really hard to win gold medals, and I think that period was so exciting because I was kind of like, and I was early in with Mo, kind of like, and I remember my kids being about 5 or 6, would have been Daegu, it would have been, and I was screaming at the TV, and they're going, "What? Who are you screaming at?" and just following him in a way that I used to follow Andy Murray, kind of, and just going, "Oh, come on!" and so his success was glorious to watch and glorious to be able to work through that period.
Gabby, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. You guys going to be out there? No. You're going to be podcasting from afar?
Probably.
Yeah. Well,
probably just enjoying it. I'll try not to do any work and just sit and scream at the telly, to be honest. Yeah.
Well, enjoy. Hope our coverage makes you happy.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Thank you so much.
See you soon. Take care. Thank you. Bye.
Jess, Ennis, welcome to the Runners World podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We're back in the stadium where it happened, Super Saturday. How does it feel whenever you come back? Do you get a little rush of memory and nostalgia and that whole day? How does it feel?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think I was just saying as I walk kind of up to the stadium and just see the stadium, it always just gives me a little warm feeling of how it felt when I came in for the first time. And I really tried before the games to avoid coming into the stadium too many times for any kind of press calls or anything, because I wanted it to feel so fresh when I actually performed. So it did, and it's just created those really lasting memories.
I mean, obviously, everyone's talked about Super Saturday, so we'll talk about it again. It was just such an immense atmosphere. You're in front of a home crowd. You're performing for your nation and for yourself. Did that atmosphere spur you on, or were you sort of trying to blink it out in a sense?
No, it definitely spurred me on. I think I had to kind of flip between modes throughout the 2 days, because obviously you were out there for 2 long days and you can't just use that energy all the time. I had to kind of narrow my focus in and not look at any individuals in the crowd too much, not look at the cameras too much, thinking, oh my gosh, all those millions of people are watching at home, but then use the crowd to help me. So when it got to the 800, I felt the crowd really lift me, and it's so hard to describe because that does not make sense. A crowd cannot lift you, but the noise and the vibrations and the energy of everybody, that positive energy, has got to help you in some way. And I really found that the crowd helped me through that last 150.
When you're now commentating and you're sort of behind the camera and you're doing all this sort of side of it, how much does the prep as an athlete come into play? How much do you take from that experience into the commentating experience? Are you using the same sort of preparation techniques? Do you sort of, that 4-year cycle is now so part and part of you that you can sort of switch into sort of it's Olympic mode, right, here we go. And it's how does it work?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you've been an athlete for so long, you can't just flick a switch and change. I'm still very structured and organised, and I do believe that preparation is key. That sounds so geeky, but you have to be prepared. And I think with preparation you feel calmer and reassured, and you can do what you need to do. So I try to be as prepared as possible. And yeah, I mean, it's very different to being on the track, and I love the adrenaline of both sides, and to be involved in the sport in the way I am now is fantastic.
And obviously this year you'll be commentating on KJT, and in 2012 you were competing alongside her. You obviously won gold, and KJT came 13th, and now she's world champion. What are your thoughts on her journey up to this point, and how do you think she'll fare?
Oh gosh, she's had such a journey. She came into the 2012 Olympics so young and just soaking up the whole experience. She had no big expectations. She just wanted to be here to enjoy it and to learn, which she did. And then she's gone on and on to do more Olympics. We did obviously the Rio Olympics together, and World Championships. And she's had such a journey. You know, she's had a really tough journey, where, you know, we all had this expectation, or everyone did, that when I retired, she would just perform and do all these amazing things. And it doesn't always work like that. And in an event like the heptathlon, so many things don't go the way they should. And that's happened to Kat a few times. But I think more than anything, she has shown such resilience and like just learned something from every one of those occasions to turn them into becoming, you know, world champion twice, and, you know, heading into her 4th Olympics. So I think it's a really exciting opportunity and year for Kat, and I'm excited, very excited to see what she can do.
We talked a little bit to Denise about this legacy of heptathlon now, and Denise was very much this, you know, you can see the impact that she's had on the sport and the impact that you've had on your sport, and KJT now, and then Jade, and you kind of, what do you think it is about the heptathlon that draws such attention, is so inviting for people? What made you want to do it? What was the sort of, what are the elements that you think that just, we obviously as a nation perhaps just got very lucky in terms of talent? What do you think it is?
Yeah, I don't think you can say it's one thing. It's really hard because each one of those athletes have had completely different training bases and setups and dotted around the country. But I think the one thing is that there's always been that one core role model that's inspired each year or every 4 years or whatever it is, the next woman that's come through into the event. And for me, I clearly remember watching Denise perform and just seeing how incredible the event was. Like, I didn't realize how hard it was. If I knew it was that hard, I probably would have picked something else. But yeah, just seeing, you know, Denise perform the way she did, and yeah, just feeling really inspired. And I think that's a big indicator to why, you know, we've had this tradition of heptathletes just keep coming and coming.
And I think looking at the Olympics more broadly, we talk about like inspiration and representation, and having people see Olympians and think, oh yeah, they're like me, I look like them, or I come from the same background. Do you think the Olympics has become more representative and inclusive? How do you think it's sort of changed up to this point?
Yeah, I think that's what I love about the Olympics, you know, and sport, you know, has the ability to just unite everybody globally. And particularly with athletics, you don't need a huge amount of equipment, you need some spikes, you can get on the track, everybody can run and have an opportunity. And I think it's so important to have, particularly for young girls as well, that there's sportswomen that are out there with a range of different bodies, physiques, they look like you, that you can identify with, and that has a massive impact on you getting involved in sport in whatever way that might be.
We touched upon this with others on your team, and we were talking about the fact that KJT is now on the cover of Vogue, and you've got, and yourself, do you have a Vogue cover? Did you have
I was in Vogue. I don't think I made it on the cover.
I just remember there was a cover with you with the flag, or was that?
Oh yeah, there was. It's such a long time ago. There was definitely that shoot. I don't know if it was on the cover. But I was on the cover of Times magazine. So there was loads of amazing.
There's those sorts of things, and I just sort of the sort of the placing athletes on that slightly higher pedestal of being more out there in front of them, the association with fashion perhaps, or the sort of style of this, and obviously then presenting the bodies of athletes and how they and what they look like, and seeing it in a positive way. Do you think that makes a big difference? Do you think there's more to be done with all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I think it does make a big difference. I remember, you know, being a young kid and early teenager, and seeing, you know, it was always very much that size 0 look, and that's what you would see on all the magazine covers, and it's just not the image that you want young girls to see and aspire to be like. And I think athletics, and particularly having London, you know, we had the opportunity to showcase so many different physiques, like you say, on the front covers with, you know, strong arms, a strong physique, and that's become something that is more accepted now, and that more women want to aspire to look like, as opposed to just having like no body fat. Like, you need body fat and you want to have muscle, and I think that's a really positive image for young girls.
And obviously you went and had a baby and then came back and competed again. and sort of part of the inclusivity of sport. Like, how do you think things have developed, say, for future mums, new mums? What's your take on where things are in that side of?
I mean, that's an area that I just love talking about, because I think it's just, I had my whole a completely different journey, and it was probably one of the most challenging but proudest parts of my career. And now that I see there's so many other athletes that do it, not just in track and field, but also in tennis and a range of different sports, where women actually now have the option, I think, in the past few years to do both, to have a bit of a pause in their career and have their children start their family, and then come back into not just performing, but performing at the highest level. Which I think is amazing. For me to have my son part of that final part of my career is something that, I feel really honoured that I was able to do that.
I think that the fact that it's a twofold story, you get the actual positive change that someone like Alison Felix has actually made legitimate change, but also the change in what that means and how it's presented. I think the two things are so important. She's there holding a baby at the finish line, and that's seen as that's the image that people want to see, not hide that all away and pretend that it hasn't happened.
But I also think athletes like Alison Felix speaking about the process of, how we need more support. It's such a grey area with, financially what happens when you have your baby, what do sponsors do? A lot of women have struggled, female athletes, with just being dropped as soon as they got pregnant and not having the support. But I think Alison has, spoke openly about brands and the lack of support and what needs to change. And I think that makes it easier for more athletes to come through and do the same.
Back to these Olympics, do you have an event that you most look forward to commentating on? Are you through and through heptathlon, that's the one you're always going to want to watch and commentate on, or is there another one that you just like? Everyone always enjoys 100 meters because it's just the 100 meters. Is there one that do you really look forward to, the 800, or because you loved it, or did you hate doing the 800 and so that's the one that you kind of look at the most?
I think it's hard to pick a favourite. Obviously the heptathlon, but I love watching the women's hurdles. I think that's an event that I love watching. It's so competitive, and you never know what's going to happen. But then I love watching the pole vault as well, and talking about Mondo Duplantis and obviously Molly now in the women's pole vault. So I think the nice thing is that we get to be in the studio overlooking everything, seeing it all unfold, and just being able to analyse and just break those performances down and chat about them, which is great.
Especially with the pole vault, you think, they're getting quite close to us up here.
I mean, they jump ridiculously high. I mean, Mondo Duplantis is just constantly breaking world records, and it's incredible to see it when it's live and you're right there. We
were just having a chat about this, and outside of track and field and the athletics and all that the events that you don't necessarily comprehend how they're doing it. Colin was talking about gymnastics and people talking about, but archery for me, I cannot understand how they can hit a target that far away. Yeah. With an arrow. I know. I absolutely couldn't do that. That's what I love about the Olympics, because you just think, everyone thinks lifting the biggest things they can, running as fast as they can. But for me, I'm like, how have there's wind. They've corrected it and it's gone there, and they've got it right in the mid. That sort of stuff is just incredible. And for me, speed climbing as well. Absolutely was kind of drawn in with the speed climbing in last Olympics. It's just, the speed. They're like Spider-Man. It's crazy.
We were saying some of these sports you just require so much agility and great eyesight. You must have weekly eye tests as part of your training just to make sure that you're all right. Yeah. So do you, in your schedule, will you have time to sort of go around Paris and in your own time when you have some spectate other sports, and which ones will you go to? So I'm bringing the kids out, my husband at the beginning before the athletics start, so we're going to go and try and see some diving, so see the synchronized diving and hopefully judo or beach volleyball, which would be great. Are these ones that you really specifically like watching? I mean, well, a bit of a mix, a judo really. Fan or something? No, he's not, but I just want to watch everything, anything I can get to. And for the kids as well,
they're at an age where they really enjoy sport, so they'll just be so excited to see it all. And then obviously it's a very busy schedule once the athletics starts, but I'll try and sneak and see as much as I can.
Does it give you a bit of FOMO and think, oh, I just want to be back out on the track, or are you like, no, I'm quite happy here?
Yeah, I think when they're at the top of the podium and they're getting a gold medal, I'm thinking, oh, that is a nice feeling.
That's a feeling.
That is a nice feeling. But then you think about actually all the hard work and the pressure that comes with it, and I think, do you know what? I'll keep my gold medals. I'm quite happy to just sit here. Yeah.
How? Has the competition, has the way people compete, has the level of competition changed? What have you noticed about athletics, and has it changed since you've stopped competing? What have you noticed more significant developments?
Yeah, I think the sport's always changing, and that's great. I think there's been a lot of noise around, obviously, new documentaries out and new formats for the athletics, which I think is great to see the sport evolving. And then, a new wave of athletes brings a different level of performances as well. And I think you often have a time where there's a slight lull and then it starts to rise again. I feel that GB athletics is really on the rise now, which is great to see.
And in terms of that, the GB talent we've got coming through, the selection process is always sort of pulls in a bit of criticism here and there about how it's been worked on. Do you think that there's a better way of doing it? Do you think that just the qualifying process is as rigid as it is because athletes need to be that good? Like, what do you how, when you were going through it, what was your sort of take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very glad that I'm not involved in any of the selection policies, because it is tough. And you look at the American structure and how they have to qualify, and that is incredibly tough. So I'm glad it's not like that, talking from an athlete's perspective. But yeah, I think you have to have a level of cut-off. But it's hard, isn't it? There's so many athletes that are just not quite there and very disappointed. Yeah,
0.64 or
for Hannah Nuttall.
and it's so close, and it's brutal. I could never be involved in. I'd just be like, well, let's just take you. Take everyone along.
Take everyone.
Yeah, but yeah, it's very challenging.
Jess, thank you much for joining us on the podcast. Good luck with the commentary. We'll see you on the TV, all those sorts of things.
Oh, thanks, guys.
So that brings us to the end of this week's Run As Well podcast. If you haven't subscribed to Run As Well magazine, please do so. Please subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already, and you'll hear from us next week.